Welcome to this predicted paper from On Maths. This paper represents the best guess for the upcoming exams. Please use this paper in addition to your other revision. You can complete a unique version of this paper by going to our On Maths site. On Maths is full of free content to help you prepare for your exams, such as topic-based papers, demon questions, and mini mocks. If you like what we do, please consider subscribing. Okay, so we're going to start by writing this out a little bit bigger, give us a bit more space. So it's minus 6x is less than 60. And we're going to do our tram lines down. And we're going to start by dividing both sides by minus 6. Because that's what this is doing. It's timesing the x by minus 6. So I'm going to divide both sides by minus 6. So that gets rid of the minus 6 on the left-hand side. And it's going to be 60 divided by minus 6, which will be minus 10. Now we've got to be really careful here, because whenever you times or divide both sides by a negative, you must switch the inequality. So instead of pointing to the left, it's now going to point to the right. So our answer is x is greater than minus 10. So to find the gradient, we need the formula or the equation in the form y equals mx plus c. And the m there will give us what the gradient is. So we're just going to be rearranging this equation. And so I'll get my lines in. So the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of the x's from the left hand side. And we can do that by adding 6x both sides. So we've got 6y equals, and I'm going to put the 6x first, just to match the y equals mx plus c. Right, the next thing I'm going to do is get rid of this 6, because we just want a y there. So we're going to divide by 6 both sides. So we've got y equals 1x plus 36. Now we shouldn't really write 1, but because we're looking for m, we're looking for the number before x, I've kind of left it in there to show that the gradient will be 1. So let's look through this question to see what information we're given and what information we're looking for. So we're given the acceleration is 13 meters per second squared. We're also given the distance is 19. And we're also given the end velocity, which is v, is 34. And we're looking for the initial velocity. So which of these formulae include a, s, v, and u? That's got a t in it, that's got a t in it, so it's going to be this one here. So let's write that out. V squared equals u squared plus 2as. So that would be 34 squared equals u squared, because that's the one we're looking for, plus 2 times 13 times 19. Okay, so let's just work these parts out. And so we've got 2 times 13 times 19, which is what, 494. And it turns into a solving part, so we're just going to solve this. So the first thing I'm going to do is subtract 494 from both sides. And so we're left with 662 equals u squared. Then we're just going to square root both sides. And so square root of that is going to be 25.729 blah blah blah. And it says it wants it to 2 decimal places, so it's going to be 25.73. We can't work out what x is straight away, but we can find this value here. And we know with Pythagoras we can find a third length if we've got other 2 in a right angle triangle. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And a and b were labelled. C is always opposite the right angle, so it'd be 49 squared plus b squared equals 68 squared. And 49 squared is 2,401. And 68 squared is 4,624. So we are solving here, so let's get our lines down. And we're going to start by subtracting the 2401 from both sides. So we've got b squared equals 2223. Then we're going to square root both sides, and we've got b equal to 47.148, blah blah blah. Okay, we're now looking at the second diagram, and this time we're going to have A, we've got our B, and we're going to call X the C. So it would be A squared plus B squared equals C squared, but this time A is 39. B we are given as 47.148, we've just worked that out, and we're looking for C. In fact, we can call it X now. Okay, so we need to square that. So we do 39 squared plus 47.148 squared, and that will be 3,744 equal to X squared. And we'll just get our lines in because we need to square root both sides, and we get 61.188 blah 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 is equal to X. It says it wants its two decimal places, so that will be 61.19. The important thing when choosing a sample is that everyone has an equal chance of being picked. So if you look at method 1, picking the first 30 students who enter the school is going to have a bias, because there might be a difference in the type of person who arrives early to school to the type of person who might arrive later. If we select a class in the school, then they're generally all going to be the same age. So if it's a year 7 class or a year 11 class, they're all going to be the same age. It might seem that it's fair that picking the first 30 students alphabetically, so A to F or whatever, again, that's not fair because the people at the end of the register don't have an equal chance of being picked. So you need to make sure everyone in your population has an equal chance of being picked. So picking 30 students out of a hat containing all the students' names in is definitely the fairest way of picking a sample from this list. So to find the area of a rectangle, we just multiply the width and the length. So that's what we're going to do here. But whenever you have an expression representing a length or a width or anything really, you just put brackets around it. So we go u minus 2 times u plus 9. Okay, and the way we do this is with our grid. And just going to draw out the grid. And so we've got u minus 2, and we're multiplying it by u plus 9. Don't want too many for some reason. And so we've got u times u, which is u squared, u times minus 2, which is minus 2u, 9 times u, which is 9u, and 9 times minus 2, which is minus 18. And what we're going to do is we're just normally going to be able to add these ones together. So our answer will be u squared, and then we're going to do 9u plus minus 2u. Well, that's just going to be 9u take away 2u, which is 7u. So plus 7u, and then minus 18 at the end. So this question says that Adrian, Ben and Charlie have some sweets, and the ratio of Adrian to Ben to Charlie is 9 to 6 to 13. But it also says that Charlie got 56 more sweets than Adrian. So there's 56 more sweets. Well, looking at the actual parts of the ratio, there are 4 more parts. So plus 4 parts, which represents plus 56 sweets. So the 4 extra parts are worth 56 sweets. So 4 parts are worth 56 sweets. So 1 part would be 56 divided by 4, which is 14 sweets. So all we need to do now is work out how many parts there are. Well, there are 9 plus 6 plus 13 parts, which is 28. And each part is worth 14 sweets. So the total number of sweets will be 28 times 14. So 28 times 14 is 392. So I'm going to start off just with a quick sketch, and we know that the bearing of B from A is 85 degrees. So we're going to have A here and B here. And let's just draw a line between them, and let's do both our north lines. And so we know that this angle here is 85 because it's the angle on the bearing of B from A, so it's 85 degrees. So now it says work out the bearing of A from B. So the first thing we can do is actually just draw a line going down here, and we know that this angle here will also be 85 degrees because of alternate angles. It's always best to write that down somewhere, so we can just put in brackets here alternate angles, and we know that this angle here is going to be 180 degrees because it's a straight line. And I'm not a fan of doing the reasons on the diagram, so maybe perhaps I should have labelled this an x and this a y and written x equals 85 and y equals 180 somewhere else. And so to work out what the bearing is, I just need to do 180 plus 85. So 180 plus 85 is going to be 265 degrees. To find the mean, we need to work out the sum of the numbers, basically what they add up to. And what we then do is divide that by the amount of numbers. Now, what this table is telling us is there are 14 students who got a time between 0 and 4 seconds. Now, it's absolutely impossible to work out what time those students got with the information in this table. So what we need to do is we need to assume they all got, say, 0 seconds or all got 4 seconds. And the fairest value to say that they all got is what we call the midpoint. And to find the midpoint, what you do is you add up the lower bound and the upper bound, so the highest value and the lowest value, add them together and divide by 2. So 0 plus 4 divided by 2, which is just 2. And that gives us a halfway number, which is fair to everyone. So the students roughly probably got 1s, 2s and 3s, and maybe a few 4s maybe. And the average of that is going to be 2, so that's fair for everyone. Same with the 4 and the 8. Halfway between 4 and 8 is 6. And you can add them together, 12 divided by 2, which is 6. Go down finding the midpoints. And we're just going to assume the students all scored the same amount, all got the same time. Then we're going to do our FS column. Okay, and so we're assuming that 14 students got a time of 2 seconds. So when you times those together, you get 28. And we're just going to times all of these together. Okay, next we're going to work out the sum of the FS. And to work that out, we just add all of these up together. So we're going to do 28 plus 36 plus 30 plus 126 plus 36. And when you add them all up, you get 256. Now, that will give us the sum of numbers. So we're going to put that into our working out now. And we need to find out how many numbers there are. Well, the frequency column will tell us how many numbers there are. So we're just going to add all of those up together. So we're going to find the sum of the frequency, which is 14 plus 6 plus 3 plus 9 plus 2, which is 34. And when we do 256 divided by 34, we get 7.529 blah blah blah. It says it wants it to 2 decimal places, so we're going to round it to 7.53. There's a lot going on with this question, so I'm going to start off just having a look at the total amount of money. So I'm going to do this in pence, so 2115 pence. And if each merit point is worth 3 pence, then we can work out the amount of merit points by doing 2,115 divided by 3. So that gives us 705. So there's 705 merit points. Next, have a look at the question here, this part here, where it says James has X merit points. Sarah has 4 times as many points as James, so she's going to have 4x. Robert has 69 fewer merit points than James, so he's going to have x minus 69. And we know that that equals 705 because we've just worked that out. And this feels like a solving coming on. So we've got x plus 4x plus x, which is 6x. Minus 69 equals 705. And we're going to add 69 to both sides. So we've got 6x equals 774. Then we're going to divide 6 both sides. And so we've got x equals 129. So x equals 129. That means James has 129. Sarah has 4 times more, so she will have 516. And Robert has 69 fewer, so we're going to take 69 away from that, and that will equal 60. There's a very specific way to draw an angle bisector, and you start off with a pair of compasses and put the point on B, and then draw an arc from B. And it doesn't matter what the distance is, as long as it's kind of roughly maybe halfway between A and B. It doesn't matter what the distance is. And then at the 2 points, so here and here, that our arc intersects line AB and BC, we're going to draw another arc up here. So I'm just going to show you because it's normally easier. So an arc over here, and I'm going to do an arc from the other one over here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to join where the 2 lines join with where the 2 arcs join. And that is how you do an angle bisector. All of the arcs leave on the diagram because they are going to get you the marks. Arcs for marks. So for this question we need to understand the different types of graphs from different functions. So if we have a reciprocal graph, it looks something like this and like this. It could be the other way around and it could be distorted, but it basically goes down to a point along here. It goes to infinity and it goes to infinity along a point over here, and obviously those positions could change. Then we've got a linear graph. A linear graph is just any straight line, so just any kind of straight line, either up or down, and this doesn't look like either of those. Then we've got a exponential graph. An exponential graph just starts really small and then just really increases like that and just keeps going up. And here we kind of have that, obviously the other way around, it starts going down, but here it's actually going up, so it can't be a reciprocal graph. So the graph that this is, or could be, is a quadratic graph because it's a nice U shape. So if we carry this on, it could be a nice U shape. It could also be a cubic graph as well. So it could go up and then down and then up, and that's a cubic graph. But the most obvious one is a quadratic graph. So quadratic function. We can keep this as an interior angle, but it's actually sometimes easier to convert it to an exterior angle. And what you might know is that the sum of interior and exterior angles is going to be 180 because they will always form a straight line. So to find the exterior angle, all we need to do is 180 take away the 170, and that means it will be 10 degrees. So we've already done a different formula for exterior angle, which is 360 divided by n. And something we can do is we can just swap these two things around. And so we can make the formula that n equals 360 divided by the exterior angle. So 360 divided by the exterior angle, well, we know that the exterior angle is 10, therefore n is 360 divided by 10, which would be 36. So for this question, what we need to do is factorise 4t plus 6. Now factorise means put it into brackets. So if I try, what I can do is I can actually put a 1 on the outside here. So 1 times 4t plus 6 is 4t plus 6, but the question clearly states that it is higher than 1. So we need to find another number that's higher than 1 to factorise this with. So if we look at 4t and 6, well, they're both in the 2 times table. So I can put a 2 on the outside here. 2 times 2t is 4t, and 2 times 3 is 6. So what we can do is we can just check that out with smiles and rainbows. Put all my times down there to remind me to times it. So 2 times 2t is 4t, 2 times 3 is 6. So that works because that is the same as this in the question. So we know that 2 times 2t plus 3 works. In fact, it's the only one that works with it being an integer. So we therefore know that the known side, because it says it's a known number, is 2. And the other side will be 2t plus 3. And then when you multiply them together, you get the area of 4t plus 6. So our answer, because it says the length is the known number, so that's the length, then we're finding the width, which is this one here. So it's 2t plus 3. So we're just going to substitute the values that were given into the formula. So v squared equals, and then u is 16.4 squared plus 2 times a, which is 0.2, times s, which is 110.2. Type that into the calculator and you get 313.039 blah blah blah. And what we're going to do is we're just going to quickly solve this by square rooting both sides, because it's v squared equals and we just want v equals. So v equals, and we're just going to square root that on the calculator, 17.692 blah blah blah. It says it wants it to 2 decimal places, that's just going to be 17.69. So let's just write out this sequence. So first thing we're going to do is work out what the sequence is going up in. And we can see here that we're adding 15 each time in our sequence. And whatever the sequence is going up in is what goes before n, so it's going to be 15n. Now 15n would give us the 15 times table, and this isn't the 15 times table. So to work out what the offset is, we go and find our 0th term. So instead of adding 15, when we go backwards, we're going to take away 15. And so that would be 10. And so our answer is going to be 15n, and we're going to add that 10 on. To find an error interval, I first of all start with drawing a number line. And the box is 130 centimeters, so we're going to put that in the middle when rounded. And it's to the nearest 10 centimeters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take away 10 centimeters, which will be 120, and add 10 centimeters. So the number line will be going up in tens because it's rounded to the nearest 10. To find the lower bound, what I do is I find the halfway point here, and to find the upper bound, the maximum it can be, I find the midway point here. So the midway point here would be 125, halfway between 120 and 130, and the midway point here will be 135, which is halfway between 130 and 140. So those will be our lower and upper bounds, the minimum and maximum it could have been before rounding. We're representing this with a h, And what we're going to do is we're going to show this as inequalities. Whenever you do an error interval, you show it with inequalities. So it can be 125, so we're going to put a line underneath the inequality there, but it can't be 135. It can be anything up until 135, because if it was 135, it would round to 140. There's a lot going on with this question, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in all of the time signs that we don't normally show. So we've got 10 times 12x times y to the power 4 times 13 times x to the power 4 times y to the power 4. And I'm going to reorder these to put the numbers together, first of all. And with multiplying, it doesn't matter which way around you do it, so I'm not changing anything. I'm going to put the x's together. And I'm going to put the y's together. So, first thing to do is 9 times 13, which is just 117. Then we've got x to the power of 12 times x to the power 4. Now we know when we multiply two powers of the same base, and the base is x on both of those, we just add the powers. So it's 12 plus 4, which is 16. So it'll be x to the power of 16. And then y to the power 4 times y to the power 4, we just add them together, so it's y to the power of 8. So the way this formula works is we have m, which is the final amount. The 2000 here is our initial amount. The decimal in here is our multiplier, and the power here is the amount of years. So the way multipliers work is they are the percentage divided by 100. So if we go the other way and times it by 100 to make it back into a percentage, it will be 102.9%. Now it says, what is the interest rate of the bank? Well, the interest rate is always going to be 100%. Well, this 102.9% is 100% plus the interest rate, which will equal the 102.9%. So the interest rate is going to be the 2.9%. You always start off with 100%. So if I put £5 into my bank, I've got 100% of that £5, and then the interest rate is on top of that 100%. So our answer here will be 2.9%. To find the resultant vector, we just get the two vectors and we add the tops and add the bottoms. And it's a plus minus 13, so it's 9 take away 13. When we do that, we get 13 at the top and minus 4 at the bottom. So this question will probably need a Venn diagram just to make it a bit easier. So I'm going to draw a Venn diagram. You don't need to. If you can work out how to do this question without, you can do. But I think this is a really tricky question to do without a Venn diagram. So it says that they picked two activities. It was either painting, which I'll put as a P, and sport, which I'll put as an S. So let's start filling in the information it gives us. So 11 picked painting and sport. So that will go in the middle, because that is painting and sport. And 11 didn't pick painting or sport, so they can sit on the outside. Now here's the problem. It says twice as many people picked sport than painting as one of their activities. So it's saying that the total number in, and let's just show it, the total number in the sport circle is twice as big as the total number in the painting circle. Now, what we can do is we can say, okay, so if the painting we label as X, then the sport will be 2X. But if you look, we've already got a number already in the sport, that 11 there. So in algebra, this will be 2x, take away the 11 that we already know about. And the painting is the same. We know the whole thing is x. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take away the bit we know there, which is the 11, and it will be x minus 11. Now, we know that there are 66 students in total. So what we can do now is add up all of the parts of the Venn diagram and get it equal to 66. So x minus 11 plus 11 plus 2x minus 11 plus 11, and all of that will equal 66. This is going to be some solving, so we're just going to put our lines in. Now here we've got x plus 2x, which is 3x. And if I put my tool right, there we are. And we've got minus 11 plus 11, minus 11 plus 11. Well, those just cancel out. So we're left with just the 3x equals, and then 66. We're going to divide that 3 both sides. So we've got x equals 22. So if we go back to our Venn diagram now, we can fill in the blanks. So instead of x minus 11 there, we've got 22 take away 11, which is just 11. Instead of 2x minus 11 there, we've got 22 times 2, which is 44, take away 11, which will be 33. So it says, find the amount that picked sport and not painting, which is this 33 here. First thing we need to do is work out the volume of this prism, and it's a trapezium-based prism. So the volume will be the area of the cross-section, or area of the trapezium, times the length, how 3D the prism is. So trapezium is half a plus b h, and then times the length. Now A and B are the two parallel sides, which will be this one and this one. And then the H is the perpendicular line that hits both of them at 90 degrees, which is what perpendicular means, between the bases. So this will be the 25 meters here. So it's going to be half, and then we're going to add 1 and 5. Times that by 25. The length is how 3D it is, so it would be that 10 there. So we're going to times that by 10, and that will give us 750. So it's 750 meters cubed. Now there is a little formula we can make for the rate. So the rate of anything, for this, will be the volume gained over time. Now, with this question though, we're interested in the time it will take. It says how long will it take. So we're actually looking at the time. So it will be time equals the volume, which is 750, over the rate, which is 15. So 750 divided by 15 is 50. So it will take 50, and let's have a look. It says per minute. So it would be 50 minutes. So there are 3 parts that we need to find the area of. We're going to start with the easiest bit first, this circle at the bottom here. Okay, so the circle area is just going to be pi times r squared. And the radius is given to us at the top, which is 9. So it's just going to be pi times 9 squared. And that will be 254.469 blah blah blah. Or we could leave it as 81 pi. Next bit is the curved bit of the cylinder. So we're going to do the cylinder next. And it's just the curved bit, and the formula for that is 2 pi r h. So 2 times pi times the radius, which is 9, times the height, which is 30. And that will give us 1696.460 blah blah blah. And the last bit is this hemisphere here. And so let's do the hemisphere. And the formula for the area of a hemisphere, well, a full sphere is 4 times pi times r squared, but because it's a hemisphere, it's half of that. And so it'd be half times 4 times pi times the 9 squared, and that will give us 508.938. And so the final thing is to work out the total area, so total surface area. And we're just going to add up all these numbers together. So we add up the 254.469, the 1696.460, blah, 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 and the 508.938, blah, 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 blah. And we get 2,459.867, blah, blah, blah. Do make sure you show the examiner that you're adding these three here. I've not done that because it wastes a bit of time for a video, but make sure you write it down. It says it wants it to 2 decimal places, so that will be 2,459.87 centimeters squared. There are a few different ways you could answer this question. I'm going to do it with a tree diagram, but you didn't need to draw a tree diagram to answer this question. So we've got our first tree, which is our first bus. And the choices are male and female. And we've got our second kind of branch, I suppose. And it's still male and female. And this is our second bus. So the property of male on a first bus is 9/15. And therefore the property of female is 1 minus 9/15, which would be 6/15. Male in the second bus is 7/15. And so female would be 8/15, because they need to add up to 1. And it's independent, so these will be the same. And the question is basically asking what is the probability that both will be female. So to have both female, we need to have gone down this line at the start and then this line again. Okay, so looking at the fractions along the way, it's 6/15 and 8/15. The word "and" in probability means times. So whenever you're finding the probability of getting to an outcome, so this outcome would be FF, because they're both female, you are multiplying the fractions that you go across. So it would be 6/15 times 8/15. So 6 times 8 is 48. And times the bottoms, 15 times 15 is 225. Now you can actually cancel that down. So what you can do is you can divide top and bottom by 4. And that will give you 16. Is it 4? No. You can times top and bottom by 3. And that would be 16/75. So either 48/225 or 16/75. With these questions, it's normally easier to view these as two separate triangles. So we've got a small triangle here with 19 and 47. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move this out. And we've got a bigger triangle here. And we've got, well, we've got a bit of, we don't really know what any of the sides are just yet, but we can work them out. Okay, now we know that both of these triangles are similar, and the reason is they share an angle and the lengths at the bottom are parallel, so they will be similar, which means one's an enlargement of the other. And we are given some information in the question that the ratio of BC to DE is 1:6. So BC is this length here, and DE is this length here. So we're actually given the scale factor because we know that 1 times 6 is 6. So we know the scale factor is 6, and it's asking us to find length AD. And so the corresponding length to AD, which is this one here. So all we need to do is get that 47, times it by the scale factor, so times it by 6 to get to our value. So it's 282. So we're going to write out the formula again, just to give us a bit of space. And so we've got 4w over 7 plus 91. So, going to first of all put our lines in, because we're asked to make w the subject. So we need to remove everything that is in our way. Well, this plus 91 is the first thing we get rid of. So what's the inverse of plus 91? Well, subtract 91. So we're going to subtract 91 from both sides. So we've got a take away 91 equals 4w over 7. Next, we've got this 4w that's trapped in this fraction. So we've got to get rid of this fraction here. So that is over 7, or divided by 7. How do we get rid of that? Well, we times both sides by 7, because divide, the opposite there, or the inverse of divide, is times. So we're going to end up with 7 times a minus 91. So it's timesing the whole thing, equals 4w. The last thing we want to do is get rid of this 4 here. Well, that's a times 4, so how do we get rid of it? Well, the opposite of times 4 is divided by 4. So we're going to divide both sides by 4. So 7 brackets a minus 91 over 4 equals w. Now, some of you might be thinking that we haven't finished the question because we've got a bracket still. But actually, the bracket is absolutely fine to leave. We don't need to expand it. So to draw a box plot, we need 5 points. We need the lowest point, lower quartile, median, upper quartile, and highest point. Now we already have the lowest and highest points, so we can put those onto our box plot now. So the lowest point is at 0 and the highest point is at 30, as we can see on the cumulative frequency graph. So we need to now find out where the median is. Now, the graph goes up to 20, the actual line goes up to 20, so the median we're going to find at 10. We're just going to draw a line across and down, and that looks like it is 17. So our median will be at 17, so we're just going to draw a line at 17. Get it just perfect, there we are. Okay, next thing, we're going to look for the lower quartile. So if the median, we drew a line across at 10, the lower quartile would do it at 5, which will be here. So that's at 12. So we're just going to draw a line up from 12. Fill in this box, and we can actually fill it in with the lowest point. And lastly, we need our upper quartile. And we do that by adding the 5 and the 10 together to make 15. So we're going to draw a line across from 15 and down. And that's 23. So a line up from 23. Try and get this as nicely as I can. I need to move that line a little bit. Oops. There we go. And let's fill in the last bit, join it up with the highest point. And there's our box plot. To find the length of the rectangle, what we're going to do is we're going to get the area and we're going to divide it by the width. Now, the question says that it wants the minimum length, so we want the length to be as small as possible. Obviously, to do that, we want the area to be as small as possible. If the area is smaller, the length will be smaller. But let's have a look at a couple of fractions. So let's have a look at a half and 1 over 100. Which one of those fractions is the smallest? Well, it's 1 over 100. But what do you notice about the denominator? That as the denominator gets bigger, the fraction gets smaller. So, to make something smaller, we actually want the denominator to be as big as possible. So we want the width to be as large as possible. So we're going to find the lower bound of the area. And the easy way to find a lower bound is find the accuracy. Well, it says the accuracy is to the nearest 10. And what we're going to do is half that. So half of 10 is 5. And then we're going to take it away from the area. So it's 98,540, take away 5, which will be 98,535. Now for the width, We're going to do the same thing, half the accuracy, half of 10 is 5, but we're looking for the upper bound, we're looking for the biggest it can be. So we're going to add that on, 1, 2, 3, 5. And when you do that calculation, you get the answer of 79.78542, blah blah. And it says it wants it to 4 decimal places. So we're going to do 79.7854. An exponential growth would show an increase from left to right, but the graph we've got in front of us, or the sketch, is showing it decreasing, so it's going to be a decay. The first thing to notice is we actually have 2 radii here. So we've got this radius here and this radius here, and all radii are always equal in length. So we have an isosceles triangle here. So this angle here is going to be 19x as well, and we've got to write that down. So we're going to say angle OBA is equal to 19x, and the reason is it's an isosceles triangle. Okay, so we know these two are equal. Well, we also can work out x because, as I said before, we have a triangle here, and all angles in a triangle add up to 180. So we've got 7x plus 19x plus 19x equals 180 degrees. And this is angles in a triangle. Try and draw a better triangle, equal 180 degrees. Try and write out these reasons in full. Okay, so that's going to be, was it 45x equals 180, and let's get our solving lines in. And we're just going to divide both sides by 45. Okay, so we've got x equals 180 divided by 45, which is 4. Now, we're looking for this angle here. That's angle ABC. Now, there's a few different ways we could do this. We could work out what this angle is, because it's a big triangle, etc., etc. Or we can use the fact that we've got a tangent touching a radius. So we know that this, let's just pick a different colour, this angle here is 90 degrees. So we can write that down. So angle OBC equals 90 degrees, because it's the angle between a tangent and a radius. Again, make sure you write all the reasons in full. And so therefore, angle ABC, which is what we're asked for, it's just 90 take away the 19x. Well, we know that 19x is 19 times 4, because we know that x is 4. And so that would be 76, so in total it would be 14 degrees. So angle ABC is 14 degrees. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is just a quick sketch of this diagram. And so we're told the lengths are 8 and 6, and the angle between the lengths is 64 degrees. And we've kind of got a missing length down here which we need to find. So we need to find that one. Okay, so let's label them. Now we're going to be using the cosine formula. So cosine formula involves angle A. So we're going to label the angle A. And the one opposite, the one we label as A, is going to be little a. And then little b and little c, it doesn't matter. Right? It doesn't matter which way around you do them. So we're going to write down the cosine formula. So it's a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cos a. And so that would be x squared equals, and that will be 8 squared plus 6 squared minus 2 times 8 times 6 times cos 64, and that will be x squared equals 57.916 blah blah blah. And we just need to solve this, and we can solve it by just square rooting both sides. So it would be x equals 7.61000 blah blah blah. Okay, we're asked for the perimeter, and so we need to do 8 plus 6 plus that 7.610 blah blah blah. I've still got on my calculator, and that equals 21.610 blah blah blah. It says it wants its 2 decimal places, so it will be 21.61. So we're told in the question that y is inversely proportional to the cube of x. So we can show that by y is proportional, there's proportionality, inversely, which would be 1 over the cube of x. Now to convert that alpha, the proportionality symbol, into an equals, we need to introduce a constant to the right hand side. So we get y equals k over x cubed, and all I've done to the right hand side is multiplied it by k. Okay, now we need an instance where we know what y is when x is something, and here we do have that, or it should be the other way around. What y is, well, yeah, what y is when x is something. So we've got y is 10 and x is 7. So we're going to feed those numbers into this kind of equation that we've made. So it's going to be 10 equals k over 7 cubed, or 10 equals k over 343. Okay. And then we're going to multiply both sides by the 343. So times by 343 both sides to find out what k is. And I'm just going to swap them around just to give myself a bit more space. And we're going to have k on the left hand side here. So that'll be 3,430. So k is 3,430. So what I'm going to do is just rewrite this equation here. But we know what k is now, so it's y equals 3,430 over x cubed. And that actually is our answer. We're going to start by working out what outcomes will give us 2 different types of drink. So we could have OA or AO. We could have AW or WA, and we could have OW or WO. Now what we notice really when we do this is that OA gives us the same probability as AO, same with AW and WA, same with OW and WO. So we're going to just ignore the right hand side ones, and we're just going to focus on the left hand side ones. To work out the probability of O and then A, so orange juice then apple juice, we work out the fact that it's 6 over, well, the probability of picking orange juice first of all is 6 over 27. And then if we picked an orange juice, the probability of picking an apple juice would be 9 over 26. And so that would be 54 over 702. Apple juice then water would be 9 over 27, and then 12 over 26, and so that would be 108 over 702. And then orange juice then water will be 6 over 27 and 12 over 26. And that would be 72 over 702. Now we're looking at the probability of this or this or this, and the word or means add. So the probability of OA or, I should put that in brackets, probability of OA or AW or OW is these added together. And when you add them together, you get 234 over 702. Now, I said we would deal with the reverse situations now. I'm going to deal with that now. And as I said, OA is going to be equal to AO, AW is equal to WA, and OW is equal to WO. So all we need to do to find the probability that the drinks are different is get the 234 over 702 and just double it. And And we can do that by just doubling the numerator. So 468 over 702. That cancels down to 2/3. So there is a 2/3 chance that the drinks will be different. So we first of all need to work out the frequencies in each of the bars. And we know that the frequency density is proportional to the frequency over the class width. So we're just going to go through each of these bars and work out what the frequency is. So all we need to do is times the frequency density by the class width. So 4.8 times 10 is 48. The second one is 0.4 times 10, which would be 4. And then the last one will be 0.8 times 5, which will also be 4. Work out the total frequencies. So it would be 48 plus 4 plus 4, which will be 56. So 56 in total, lines in total, and they only want to see the largest 20%. So we're just going to work out 20% of 56, which we can do, we can just multiply it by 0.2, and that'll give us 11.2. Now you can't have 0.2 of a line, so we can just round that to 11. Iteration is a process to find a solution, and we're asked to find the solution for this correct to, or a solution for this correct to 2 decimal places. Now what we're going to do on a calculator is something a bit weird. We're going to literally just press the number 2, and then we're going to press equals. When you do that, it stores the 2 in the calculator's memory. The next thing we're going to do is type in 13, and as soon as you type in the 1, the 2 will disappear. So 13 minus square root of answer. And most calculators call it ANS, answer. On the Casio calculators, it's at the bottom right and then left 1. It's next to the equal sign. And then next time we press equals, what it will do is it will get this 2, it will feed it into this, and then it will work out what the next solution is. When you do that, you get a solution of 11.59 when rounded to the 2 decimal places. Press it again, you get 9.60, again rounded to 2 decimal places. Again, 9.90, 9.85, so it's getting closer to something now. 9.86, and then 9.86. So our solution, our answer, is going to be 9.86, because as soon as the number repeats, then you stop and you write down that answer. So we're going to just quickly write out our sequence, so 9, 22, 41, 66 and 97, and we're going to find the differences of each of them. So that's going to be plus 13, then we've got plus 19. So they're different already, we know that it's not a linear sequence, and that's going to be plus 31. So we now look at the difference of the differences, and so we've got plus 6 again, and plus 6 again. When you have a difference of differences, it's going to be a quadratic sequence, and we're interested in what the difference of differences is, because what we now do is get that 6 and we always halve it, and it gives us 3. Now that 3 is actually really important because that is the coefficient of the n squared. So we know our sequence will begin 3n squared. So we're going to do a table now to see what the rest of the sequence will be. And we're going to have our term number and our sequence. So term numbers will just be first, second, third, fourth and fifth. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The sequence is just 9, 22, 41, 66 and 97. Now we know that 3n squared is part of our sequence. So what we're doing now is just removing the 3n squared bit and see what we have left over. So we're going to do 3 times 1 squared, which will be 3, 3 times 2 squared, which will be 12, and then 3 times 3 squared, 27, 3 times 4 squared, 48, 3 times 5 squared, 75. And we're just going to remove that from our sequence. So we've got our sequence, and we're removing the 3n squared bit, because we know what that is. We've already answered that part. So 9 take away 3 is 6. 22 take away 12 is 10. So they're not the same with this. 14, 18, 22. Now, what do you notice? Well, we notice that these ones here are going up in 4s. So we've got a linear sequence here. So they're going up in 4s. So we know that that will be plus 4n. And then we find the 0th term. So we go back. So 6 take away 4, which will be 2. So it's going to be 4n plus 2. So our total quadratic sequence will be 3n squared plus 4n plus 2. Okay, so we're given the fact that this is a graph of y equals cos x, but it also says that we're looking for solutions for cos x equals minus 3/4. So if you look at those two things, you'll realise that y equals minus 0.75. And if we plot that on our graph, and it's a bit of an estimate, it doesn't have to be perfect, you can see that there's 2 points which it crosses the graph. Okay? Now, we need to work out what one of these points is, and the way we do that is we do the inverse cos of the minus 0.75, and we do that on a calculator. 138.590 blah blah blah. Now the problems with calculators is they will only ever give us the first solution, so this solution here. They can't give us all the solutions because there are infinite solutions, because this graph is going to go on forever waving up and down, okay, and crossing that line which we've drawn in blue on the graph. So it gives us the first one. The calculator will always give us the first solution, but we can use symmetry to find the next solution. If you look at the graph, we've got this point here, and the whole graph, if I draw a line up, the whole graph is symmetrical. Okay? Do you see it? The whole thing is symmetrical. So if the distance here, so the distance between the start and here is 138.590 blah blah blah, then that distance must be the same distance as here. That must also be 138.590 blah blah blah. So to work out what this coordinate is, all we need to do is 360 take away the 138.590. So 360, which is here, take away this bit here that we know, and that will tell us what this bit here, what this coordinate here is. And so we've got, type that into the calculator, you get 221.409 blah blah blah. We want the answer to two decimal places, so the first solution is 138.59, and the other solution is 221.41. A line that has a gradient of 0 will just be a horizontal line. So if you get your ruler and you just have a horizontal line on your ruler, so just have it as a gradient 0, and just keep moving down this graph until it becomes the tangent of the curve. So if you see, it becomes a tangent to that curve here. Where is it a tangent to? Well, it's a tangent to this coordinate here, which is at x equals 2.5. So we've got x equals 2.5, and you can see the y is 2. So the coordinates are 2.5 and 2. We're asked to solve this quadratic. It doesn't look like a quadratic yet, but I'm sure it will do at some point. Now, the first thing with this question to focus on is the fractions. we're not going to be able to do anything with this question with those fractions there. And normally if you see fractions or brackets in a question, the first thing you want to do is get rid of those. So I'm going to start by just copying the question down. So we've got 2 over, and let's just do the other over while I'm here. So we've got 2 over x minus 5. So we've got to get rid of the x minus 5, and we've got to get rid of this x plus 5. We've got plus 8 equals 0. And I'm going to just shift down so we've got loads of space here to be able to do this question, because this is going to be quite a lengthy question. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of the fraction on the left-hand side. And the way of doing that is I'm just going to times both sides by x minus 5. Now when you times both sides by something and there's more than one term on one of the sides, you've got to times each of the terms. So we're going to start by timesing the left-hand fraction. Well, that will just get rid of the x minus 5 and just leave 2. Then we're going to times the second fraction. So when you times something by a fraction, you just times the numerator. So it becomes 5 brackets x minus 5 over x plus 5. And then we're going to times this 8. In fact, let's just try and keep our pluses consistent. So it would be 8 brackets x minus 5. Now 0 times anything is just 0, so this will just remain as 0. Okay, next we're going to times by the x plus 5 to get rid of that fraction. Both sides. So this will leave us with 2 brackets x plus 5. That will get rid of this fraction here, and we'll just leave the x minus 5. And then this will become 8 brackets x minus 5 brackets x plus 5. And 0 times anything is just 0. Okay, next thing we need to do is multiply out these brackets. So we're left with 2x plus 10 plus 5x minus 25 plus 8x minus, that's a quadratic, so that will be plus, let me try and work it out quickly, it was 8x squared plus 0x minus 200 equals 0. Now notice here in the brackets it's a difference of 2 squares. You've got an x minus 5 and an x plus 5, and difference of 2 squares end up with 0, the coefficient of x being 0. So that's not really a surprise. Collect the like terms, so we've got 8x squared, and that's the only x squared we've got. We've got the 2x and the 5x and the 0x, so we've got a 7x. And we've got we've got plus 10, minus 25, and a minus 200. So what's that? That's minus 215 equals 0. Now, normally when you look at it it doesn't look like it will factorise. If this is on the calculator paper, chances are it will be a question on the on using the quadratic formula. If you look back at the question as well, the biggest clue is it asks for the answer to be to 2 decimal places, so it clearly won't factorise. So we are using the quadratic formula. So for our quadratic formula, we need to know what a equals, and a is the coefficient of the x squared, so a equals 8. We need to know what b equals, and that's the coefficient of the x, so that's 7, and we need to know what c equals, and that's the number at the end, which will be minus 215. So the quadratic formula is x equals minus b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and all of that over 2a. So what we're going to type into our calculator will be minus bracket 7. Now I always put them into brackets. You don't need to with this when it's positive, but when it's negative it really does help. Minus 4 times, and then a is 8 times, and then c is minus 215. And students get into problems when they don't put them into brackets. But if you put them into brackets, you'll always be covered. Okay, so to do this, you type that into your calculator with a plus, and you type it into your calculator with a minus. When you type it into the calculator with a plus, you get 4.765, blah, blah, blah. And when you type it into the calculator with a negative, you get minus 5.640, blah, blah, blah. And so that will lead to the solutions of 4.77 to two decimal places, and minus 5.64 to 2 decimal places. So simultaneous equations we normally solve by working downwards and doing the circles and using the normal method on them, which is solving simultaneous equations by elimination. Sometimes though, when we've got a linear and a quadratic, which we have here, it's not possible to do that method. So what we've got to do is substitute one equation into the other. Now here, it's actually been nice to us in this question because they're both equal to y. So I can replace that second y with the 2x plus 11. I can just put that into that equation there, which is what we're going to do. So we've got 2x plus 11 equals x squared minus 5x plus 4. And we're just going to get everything equal to 0 so that we can solve it as a quadratic. So I'm just going to start by subtracting 11 both sides. So we've got 2x equals x squared minus 5x, what's that going to be? That's going to be minus 7. And then take away the 2x both sides. So we're going to have 0 equals x squared minus 7x minus 7. Now, we know this is not going to factorise nicely because it asks it for 2 decimal places. It's on the calculator paper. Chances are it's going to be quadratic formula we'll need, which we do. So we've got a equal to the coefficient of the x squared, which is just 1. B equal to the coefficient of the x, which is just minus 7. And then c equal to the number unknown at the end, which is minus 7 also. So we write out the quadratic formula. So x equals minus b, and always put them into brackets. So minus 7 plus minus the square root of b squared, so in brackets minus 7 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is minus 7. Oh, and all of that over 2a, so 2 times 1. And when you do that with a plus in that bit there on the calculator, we get the answer of 7.887, blah, blah, blah. When you do it with a minus, you get the answer of minus 0.887. And don't rewrite the whole formula when you change from plus to minus. Just use the calculator function to go back to this sign and just delete it and change it to a minus. But when we solve, we've got to find out the x and the y values. So we look at this first equation here, which says y equals 2x plus 11. It means to find out what y is, all we need to do is times it by 2 and then add 11. So I'm just going to do that with the first solution we have, so 7.887, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to times it by 2 on my calculator, and then plus 11. And that gives me the answer of 26.774, blah, blah, blah. Then I'm going to do that with the second solution we found, so minus 0.887, blah, blah, blah. Go times it by 2, then add 11, and that gives me 9.225, blah, blah, blah. So to 2 decimal places, our answers are going to be 7.89 and 26.77, or minus 0.89 and 7.23. You can complete a unique version of this paper by going to our OnMaths site. OnMaths is full of free content to help you prepare for your exams, such as topic-based papers, demon questions, and mini mocks. If you like what we do, please consider subscribing.